there, ducklings. Thank you for joining me for an explanation of my deep self-knowledge reading. This is one of my surprise favourites in the online store. Every so often I design something, I put it out there on the store for clients to buy, and my eyebrows raise pretty much immediately at how popular it is. And this was definitely one of those things. I did not expect to have sold as many of these as I have done. I actually have 3 in my queue at the moment as I'm filming this. So it's just amazing. I feel like I've always got one of these in my queue that's being done. It's a resoundingly popular spread design. So I thought I would take this moment to break it down for you guys, for anybody who's looking for a longer spread design, something more in depth, something that hits a lot of different areas, something that is to do with self-reflection, self-discovery, and will hopefully help you to cover a lot of ground if you feel like you're really trying to get to know yourself on a deeper level. You've got a lot of questions about yourself and you're finding that a lot of the smaller or the quick and dirty spreads just aren't really doing the trick for you. Hopefully you will find that if the deep self-knowledge template doesn't work for you, then you can swap and change a few things and find that eventually you do get there with something that sort of sits right and does satisfy you. So, before I go into interpreting the 12 spread positions in this spread, I will first of all let you know that this is not a demo reading. I am not going to be turning these cards over. As always with my explanations of spread breakdowns, I am going to leave the cards face down, because it's really not about what cards come up. I'm not reading for anyone. I'm not trying to show you how you would read, for example, cards or anything like that. This is literally just a spread to show you how I would lay it out. It's just something visual for you to look at, for you to focus on, so you can kind of just get the spread positions in mind while I talk a little bit about what each of the spread positions means. It's not there as an example reading, and I do always make that disclaimer because sometimes people are really confused as to why I'm not turning the cards over. So yeah, they are face down for a reason. The stones are really just there for show. I've got some rose quartz there, which I actually always love using for my client readings, and I have explained in previous spread breakdowns why I love rose quartz so much. But essentially it is just very connected to themes like self-love, self-care, emotional growth, emotional healing, spiritual protection, spiritual evolution, forgiveness, compassion, and relationship stuff. So it really covers a lot of ground, basically. I've got some amethyst there, which I love to use, and some lapis lazuli as well. Just in brief, because I know there's going to be at least one person who's going to ask, amethyst is pretty good for things like intuition, leveling up spiritually, spiritual attunement, and all that kind of thing. Lapis lazuli actually covers a lot of the same sort of ground. It's also about expressing yourself spiritually and creatively, living in your authenticity, you know, just figuring out what you still have to teach and what you still have to learn on the path. There's so much more to it. I'm not actually, you know, really deep and heavy into the crystals. I don't have a massive collection, but I do use them for my client readings. Just before I get started with explaining the 12 spread positions, I do want to let you guys know that the list of all 12 spread positions are in the down bar below. So if you do want to grab them and just pop them onto a Word document and print them out, or write them down if you have your tarot journal handy. So I'll start in the top left hand corner with position number 1 for the deep self-knowledge reading, and that is, what is the most important or significant thing to focus on right now? So this first card really looks at this particular point in your life, the present time, looking at what is it important to focus on, what is the most significant thing. Any number of things could come up here for this first card. It could be a relationship in your life, it could be an ambition that you're really moving towards, it could be a project that you're working on, or it could be an underlying shadow theme that actually you've been trying to run away from, and maybe the card will ask you to bring your attention to it. So it could be any number of different things that come along with position 1, looking at what is the most important or significant thing to focus on right now. And this is a very present oriented first position with the deep self-knowledge reading. We're really kind of oriented into the present, looking at what it's important to focus on now. Where is your agency? Where can you be placing your focus? So it starts out very strong and it continues in that vein with spread position number 2, which is, how can you make every single day count? So this is really a positivity card for position number 2, looking at how you can feel really good about every single day. And the way that I always put it across to my clients when I'm doing this spread position for them is that this card is all about making sure that when your head hits the pillow at night time, you feel really great about the day that you've had. You feel that the day that you've had has been meaningful, it's been purposeful, it's been engaging for you. And that's the kind of vibe that we're going for with card number 2. So many amazing different things come through with position number 2 for my clients. Sometimes it's about connecting more with others. Sometimes it's about gratitude. It could be about spiritual practice. You know, it could be about self-care stuff. All kinds of different things come up. So position number 2 is definitely sometimes a bit of a wild card. Really interesting results from position 2. So then we look at position number 3 here. This is the negative or unhelpful mindsets or behaviours that you need to be wary of. So card number 3 is moving more into the tough stuff, okay? It's really about what kinds of behaviours you are exhibiting or what kinds of mindsets you're hanging on to that are unhelpful. They are toxic, they are damaging, they are not doing you any favours. And it's really looking at being wary of them so that you do not succumb to them and you don't become a victim of those negative mindsets and behaviours. And then position number 4 is the complete opposite, where we're looking at the positive or helpful mindsets and behaviours that you're going to want to cultivate in the coming weeks and months. So here we're looking much more at what you can actually cultivate in terms of positivity, in terms of mindsets that are more helpful and behaviours that are more productive. I really love these two. They come as a pair, you know, they really are just about the two sides of the same coin. What do you need to release in terms of mindsets and behaviours, and then what do you need to cultivate more of? So it's about clearing away what's not working and then making space for what will be working and figuring out what is going to work for you. So position number 5, this is where we look at your connections with other people. So here we're looking at what kinds of relationships or connections are healthy and unhealthy for you. Now you might think to yourself, why is there only one card there? Why isn't there 2 cards? One to represent healthy connections and one to represent unhealthy ones. Well, for me, I don't feel like I need 2 cards. I feel like I can look at the card that's come through and I can determine from that card what kinds of relationship dynamics and relationship styles would be healthy for the client, and then I can actually infer from that what kinds of relationship styles and dynamics would be unhealthy. I can do that with 1 card, and I feel like that goes very well. If you feel like you do need to use 2 cards for that, if you feel like you need one to look at what kinds of relationships are healthy and then what kinds of relationships are unhealthy, then obviously go ahead and use the 2 cards. For me, I don't personally feel like that's necessary for my particular practice with this reading. I think card number 5, looking at unhealthy and healthy relationship dynamics, can be very revealing, because it's not just about what kinds of relationships you might want to foster in the present and future. It's also looking at the relationships you've got going on now and whether or not they actually are healthy. And sometimes that card can bring up some revealing information or some revealing things for you to contemplate when it comes to the relationships that you're actually fostering right now in your life and whether or not they're actually good for you anymore. So card number 6 then, the very last card on the top row for the deep self-knowledge reading, is looking at whereabouts you are currently experiencing some underlying anger or stress. So quite often we can be experiencing negative emotions, we can be feeling ratty, we can be feeling irritable or angry or stressed, but we're not really sure whereabouts that pressure is building up. Or we might feel like we know why we're angry, but there are actually much deeper reasons for that anger. And so this card is really helping you to understand whereabouts there might be some underlying anger or stress. And it might be that you're experiencing negative emotions on quite an unconscious level. So maybe you're not really aware of the stress or the anger or the pressure that's brewing up. And so this card can be very revealing because it can show you whereabouts you might be having some ill feeling towards a specific person or in relation to a specific project or activity. And you might not even have known that that anger or stress was building. And actually the card gives you a chance to contemplate on that and focus on that. Sometimes you might feel like you definitely know that you've got anger and stress brewing, and this 6th card in the reading just kind of helps you to tune in on what is actually creating that anger and that stress. So it kind of reduces the chance of you blaming the wrong thing for your anger and stress, which very often does happen. And then card number 7, which comes along on the 2nd row of the deep self-knowledge reading, is looking at how you can deal with that anger or stress in a healthy way. So it is connected to card number 6. Basically, card number 6 shows you whereabouts in your life anger or stress might be building up. And then card number 7 is the really productive, really action oriented card, which helps you to figure out how you're going to deal with that anger and stress. And this is really about making sure that you're not blowing up at other people, you're not behaving in ways that are out of alignment with your ethics and principles, but rather you're actually making sure that you take productive action to deal with your feelings and actually make sure you're making positive movements forward. So card number 7 is a really nice kind of twin card to card number 6, and it just goes deeper into how you can make sure you're dealing with those negative feelings. Card number 8 in the deep self-knowledge reading helps you to look at your current signature strengths and key abilities. So here you're specifically looking at what your signature strengths are right now. I feel like people's signature strengths tend to change as they go through different phases of life. I think that certain abilities rise to the fore and others fade into the background as we go through different challenges and we need to exhibit different parts of our character. So card number 8 is really about what your signature strengths are right now. What kinds of abilities can you bring to the table right now? And this card is specifically important for people who feel like they're not really connecting to what their strengths are. They feel like they don't really know how they are able to shine, and they are not convinced of their abilities. This kind of card can be a really good one for showing you what your strengths actually are, what it is that you can really do, what abilities can you bring to the table. And then number 9, card number 9 is looking at how you can support yourself more fully. So what kinds of things can you be doing to make sure that you are practicing self-care, that you are motivating and inspiring yourself, and also that you're keeping away from those negative mindsets and behaviours that were highlighted in card number 3. So supporting yourself works on obviously a number of different levels, and the really great thing about card number 9 is that it really taps into a lot of those different things. You know, how can you support yourself physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually? The card that comes through for position number 9 is really interesting because it's going to help you to home in on some specific things or some specific areas of focus that will help you to make that self-support so much more holistic. And then card number 10, this is looking at how you can reach your fullest potential. So if you really want to go the distance, if you really want to go for gold, how is that going to happen? How are you going to make that into a reality? Sometimes this card is a little bit tough loving and it is a little bit of a cold slap in the face. It's a bit of a spiritual throwdown sometimes because it tells you about some things that you really need to address or change if you want to get out of your own way. Sometimes it is much more of a loving, supportive, inspiring message. It can give you kind of a parental energy, you know, so it's like a pep talk or a beautiful piece of advice that can help you to move ahead. It really depends where you are and what is needed most. I always believe that the cards that need to come through in a reading are always the correct cards, no matter what. It's always the case that the cards that come through are the cards that needed to come through. So sometimes if you do have some messages that feel a little bit complex or a little bit tangled, all you need to do is sit with them and the answers will reveal themselves. And if you get more from some cards in a reading than you get from other cards, it's okay to just circle back around to those more confusing cards a little bit later on, maybe do a little bit more journaling with them, sit with them, path work with them, and get a better sense of what is really coming through from those more complex cards. Card number 11 in the deep self-knowledge reading is, whereabouts do you tend to be your own worst enemy? So this is obviously quite a sobering card. For a lot of people this is a very shadow worky kind of card because it's all about whereabouts you tend to get it wrong for yourself. You know, whereabouts do you tend to be in your own way? This is very revealing for a lot of people, card number 11. It's really about what you tend to do that holds you back. And sometimes you might not even realise that that was something that was holding you back until you turn the card over, and then you're kind of like, oh right, okay, now I kind of understand that that is something that I do that holds me back, or it wastes my time, or it discourages me. And it's great, card number 11, because even though it can be a little bit tough loving, it also gives you some amazing guidance on what you can do to get out of your own way. So if you're really serious about positive change, you're really serious about leveling up and moving forward positively, you're not going to resent whatever comes through in card number 11, because you know that is going to give you some advice to move forward in a way that stops the obstructions and actually stops you from being your own worst enemy. So it's a loving card, but it can be, again, a little bit of a cold hard slap in the face. It does sometimes pack a lot of truth. The 12th and final position in the deep self-knowledge reading, right there in the bottom right hand corner, is what do you need to fully release or mourn for good? So what do you actually really need to let go of now? What do you need to release? What are you holding on to? What are you not over yet? Or is there anything in your life that you're still putting a lot of energy in, still putting a lot of effort into, when you really do just need to accept that it's never going to provide the results that you so desperately want it to provide? And that's just one of those things. Again, there can be some harsh truths in this. Sometimes with certain clients, whatever is symbolized by this card is something that they've put a lot of energy into, a lot of time into, something that they want to keep believing in, and it can be difficult for them to kind of accept that they may need to contemplate the idea of giving more time and energy elsewhere and not kind of putting so much time and energy into something that doesn't really give them any return on that investment, whether that investment is financial, whether it's emotional, whether it's spiritual. So sometimes this card can really just say, let go, you know, you're flogging a dead horse, and that can actually be quite a painful thing that the card asks you to consider. At other times it's really just about a mindset or a way of viewing things which is just holding you back and that you need to kind of get rid of. Sometimes it's really simple things as well, like simple everyday behaviours that are going to be very easy for you to change, that you may actually have overlooked the significance of, and that's really exciting. I love it when that kind of message comes through, because that's something quick and dirty that you can change like literally as soon as you've finished listening to the reading. You know, you can be like, oh, okay, I didn't know that I needed to let go of that behaviour, or I needed to let go of that way of doing things, and actually that's going to be quite simple to implement. So that's always really exciting when you realise it's not going to take a lot for you to make that simple change in order to really kind of move forward in a positive way. Darlings, this is the deep self-knowledge reading. Obviously lots of different themes, lots of different stuff to get through. Every single card can be so high impact. There is a lot of potential for intensity and a lot of potential for game-changing revelations to come through, as well as obviously the potential for you to have some of your inklings and your intuitive hits kind of underlined. So sometimes it's more revelatory in nature, and sometimes you'll find that some of the cards tell you what you already were suspecting yourself, but you get that wonderful external sign that tells you, yeah, I am on the right track, and I did know intuitively that that was what I needed to do, or that was what I needed to move away from or move towards, and how wonderful that one of these cards has actually kind of confirmed that for me. So different people will get different things from it at different times in their life. I hope it's really helpful for you. Please do feel free to make use of this spread if you want to use it for yourself. You can customize any part of it. You can make it, you know, more applicable to you. You can make it so it resonates more with you. If you decide that you want to share this reading design on your blog, your website, or in a Facebook group, please do link back to my original video. That would be so helpful. And if you would like to purchase a deep self-knowledge reading from me, then you can go ahead and click the link that I will leave in the down bar below, and you can find out what I have to say and what comes through from the cards from my perspective for these 12 very fizzy spread positions. I have really enjoyed sharing this breakdown with you. I love designing spreads. It's one of my favourite things to do in the whole wide world, amen. So thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to explain this creation to you. So much love, and if you do try it out, let me know how it goes, and blessed be, guys, until next time.